Y'all, my I told you so's are never any fun. So I'm sure you've already heard about the latest holy shit, not even Margaret Atwood thought of that shit situation brewing in my home state of Georgia. But in case you haven't, the state has turned a brain-dead woman into a flesh incubator for the sake of a 9-week-old fetus. This is the story of April Newkirk, a 30-year-old Georgia woman who went to the hospital in February for severe headaches. But showing nowhere near as much compassion for her as they later show for her unborn fetus, the hospital didn't run any scans or tests. They just gave her some medicine and sent her home. The next day, she was found gargling and gasping for air. Turns out she had multiple blood clots in her brain. By the time they could get her back to the hospital, she was already brain dead. Now, to be clear, brain dead is dead. It's go ahead and harvest the organs levels of dead. But Georgia's medieval abortion laws make no provisions for that, and Newkirk was 9 weeks pregnant when this happened. And look, I want you to pause for a second and consider just how pregnant 9 weeks isn't. We're just barely out of the embryo stage here. It's the size of a fucking fingernail. But it has a heartbeat, or what passes for one according to these bullshit laws. So medical personnel have no choice but to keep her alive with machines until the fetus is viable, which is 34 weeks. So her family has to prolong their grief by months, and then presumably raise the kid the state burdened them with. And look, the obvious victim here is Newkirk's family. Her mother is furious about the lack of choice. And when this motherless child is forced into the world, he'll be the victim too. But you also have to consider the scale of this kind of shit. How much life-saving medical equipment and finite attention of medical personnel are we going to devote to this case and cases like it? I mean, if I was a doctor or a nurse and the state consigned me to participating in this inhumane torture, I'd be tempted to find another job. How much medical personnel are we going to sacrifice on the altar of forced birth before we right this fucking ship? And another ancillary issue we should never forget about is the danger that occurs when we empower the misogynist. After all, I have a sneaking suspicion that this fetuses are humans lie is also behind the recent bombing of a fertility clinic in California. Now, at the time of this writing, they're not officially offering up a motivation, but when a car explodes in the parking lot of American Reproductive Centers, you can take a pretty good guess. Either it was a Christian terrorist trying to save unborn clusters of cells, or else it was a Tesla. But I'm not only bringing you bad news this week. See, as you may know, Dear Leader is going to be celebrating his birthday with a fascist military parade through the streets of D.C. on June 14th. And officially, it's because that's the Army's 250th birthday. But it's also Trump's birthday, and that's absolutely why they're doing it. But that's also why the Women's March chose that date to revive their efforts and possibly ding the shit out of Trump's precious news cycle. It would be pretty awesome if every story about his parade ended with a reminder that way more people showed up to march against him. So be sure to check out womensmarch.com to see where the closest march is to you, or just check the show notes. So with that, and a quick thanks to Peter and Zachary for sending a couple of these stories to me at scathingnews@gmail.com, I'll wrap things up and hand you back over to Noah, Heath, and Eli.